So tell me, in those last images, what were you looking at? All the wonderful colors, shapes, and sizes? Or did you read between the lines? Don't forget, this is how we started. And then... Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly. Today we're going to be shamefully riding the coattails of a topic started by Myelin Games last week. Granted, he's told me several times he wants me to do so, but I am happy he's okay with me covering it so close off the heels of his video. I am doing this for myself, as I always do, but it's a topic that has intrigued me for some time, along with the other two elements. It allows me to tie Destiny's lore with astrophysics, biology, and other science, while having fun doing so. As always, thanks for letting me indulge myself. First, check out Myelin's video in his channel. You can find a link in the description. He's an awesome guy, so I recommend highly checking him out. Today, we look into the black, the nothing, the expanse, space, the final frontier, the void. Many people have come and gone with theories, but not many have been able to fully put their finger on just what the void is. Granted, you and I could look up at the sky at night and see the blackness of space, which is the easiest representation, but just how much further do we need to go? Oh dear. Oh, come on. I swear the Vanguard doesn't pay me enough to do these reports some days. If it's not obvious, science incoming. Let's start at the top. Us. Guardians, Defender, Voidwalker, Nightstalker. Good place to start our search. No, this is better. Black holes, regarded as monsters of the cosmos, eaters of light, life, and matter. We regard them with fear and uncertainty, and with good reason. They're generally thought to be a good star gone bad. There are smaller ones that could be the size of an atom, believed to be around since the universe began, and then there's ones that we think of more commonly, which are called stellar black holes. Stellar black holes are the leftovers of a dead star. These are formed when a sun that's much larger than our own falls in on itself, defeated by the forces of gravity. That's a keyword for sure when dealing with the void. This star has used up all of the material that causes it to react and act. Know how our sun pops off plumes or prominences into space? That's one way it expenses some of these materials. Materials that we would regard as life and existence. Metals, gases, and other elements are not exempt of what can be sucked into a black hole. And then there's supermassive black holes, ones that are believed to have been around since the formation of a galaxy. They swirl at the center of a galaxy, causing stars and worlds to stick within its large gravity well, sucking in matter as it ventures too close. As a side note, while we're busy with the darkness, there's other solar systems having a bad day thanks to these things. Just saying. Well, that gives us a basis to go by, but... oh, right, we have our void abilities to look at. Well, let's start with the Defender. I mean, they're just a wall anyway. They don't really have a lot of power over the void. Wait a minute. Ward of Dawn resembles the dead star in the center of a black hole. Reading off the ability to a point here, open a pocket in the universe, an impregnable fortress for you and your allies. A pocket in the universe, Then again, what is that void light that surrounds us made out of? Though we don't clearly know, the idea that it could be any matter surrounding the Titan has a bit of truth. What do black holes do, after all? They absorb matter. And if you look at the animation of the ward being cast, you can see how it almost takes in matter surrounding the Titan before being projected outward. And then there's a part of a black hole we haven't spoken of yet, an event horizon. This is where you can see light visibly terminate in a black hole, where everything from then on gets sucked into a pit. Look at the edges of a Ward of Dawn and you'll know exactly what I mean by this. It's almost like bullets, grenades, and other matter are seemingly sucked into another part of space-time. Oh, and Disintegrate is another fine example of how Titans use matter. Force Barrier, for instance, triggers only on killing an enemy, not on just hitting a target. Speculating here, of course, but it's specific because the Titan is literally taking what is that target's matter and turning it into a barrier for himself, much like that of a black hole would take matter in itself. Basically, you're wearing aliens when you have a force barrier up. In fact, Ikora hints at this very instance with some quest dialogue. The Titans decry the Voidwalkers of our use of light. Vampiric and grotesque, they call us. But how do they think their disintegration barriers form? What do they think happens to their atomized victims? Titans can be so amusing. The core array. Then there are grenades. Magnetic is an aptly chosen description for one. Magnets work on gravitational and electrified currents from one pole to the next, north to south normally. Gravity I can see from the void, but the electricity? That's arc. What is that doing? Right. Electrified and magnetic currents are influenced by gravity. And then there's suppressor grenades, stopping the use of abilities on targets while doing damage as well. Like the laws of space-time are bent to make it seem like those abilities don't exist for a little while. Oh, Titans, you are truly crafty. And you fear warlocks and hunters for their use of the void? You're playing with powers and you barely understand what you're doing with them. Speaking of the hunters, not all of them are able to wield the powers of the void bow. It's a very specific and learned practice. Most hunters are comfortable with solar and arc abilities. These come naturally to them, especially when they spend too much time out in deep space. I suppose it's quite a comfort to them being able to relate their time spent out there with their inner fire and life. That's not what they think of the void, that's for sure. Kate has a few words to would-be Night Stalkers. Picking it up is the easy part, Honor. Putting it down again, well, you'll find that it's addictive, that power. This weapon is something special. Your light gets twisted, changed. You find the power to punch through and borrow something from the other side. The void opens up a hole and draws from the deep. Go ahead, carry it a while, Hunter. You'll feel how heavy it can get. Cade 6. I have a small theory on why hunters are both passive and contemptuous of the void. It comes back to our old friend, Dredgen Yor. It's thought he was a hunter, and his story of falling victim to the darkness paved the way for others to follow suit, to understand further what the void had in its power. In fact, another Dredgen named Vale comments on something similar. There will be suffering, but know that you do this for a just cause. If the darkness is to be defeated, it must be understood. The void will siphon that which the weapon needs, and the weapon will feast. Dredgen Vale, Rite of Cleansing. I think the story of Bane, Vale, and others can wait for another day, however. That's dealing with other factors more than the void itself, but it's interesting to note that several hunters, or at least I assume these are all hunters, given a couple pieces of info, fall victim to the temptations of the dark. The void seems to be their gateway for it. When you wield the void, you wield a key. When the void touches life, it unlocks the light within, sometimes with terrible results. Brother Vance. Jeez, Ikora, where do you dig this stuff up? That honestly went down a tangent I didn't expect. Let's briefly look at the hunter's abilities before we move on. Their grenades are all based on the black hole concept as well. Void Wall is a famous grenade, seemingly based off of the event horizon again, where Vortex Grenade acts as its own little dark star as well. All the Night Stalker grenades even have Ikora impressed. Not easy to do, let me tell you what. The Night Stalkers found a way to turn their void light into a flame without a single iota of solar energy involved. If he cared about the intricacies of light manipulation, Shanks would say it's quite a thing. Ikora Ray. Void light being used as a flame? Could this be a little relation to their overall connection with solar and arc? Their want to constantly be connected with the light itself? Spike grenades act as an almost dark prominence like that of our sun, just with a void influence instead. All I can do is speculate here, have to search deeper still. The tether that a hunter wields is a decent mix in understanding the other two Guardians' abilities. Titans have their ward to protect, slow down, flash enemies, etc., and Warlocks use Nova Bomb to destroy. We'll cover that soon enough, granted. The nature of tether is like controlling ripples in space-time, slowing down enemies caught by a snare of the void. In the event horizon, it's theorized you'd be able to look back over space and see it all moving so very quickly, but you would be near still, a moment trapped in time. It's not to the same effect, but hunters do what they can for being so fearful of these arts. Smoke bombs linked to the void are a bit more obvious, bending light to hide within a mist or disappear completely. Oh yeah, didn't cover light bending yet. Give me a moment. A little Earth history. In 1814, Joseph von Fraunhofer was the person most accredited to discovering and founding a system that deals with spectroscopy, or being able to catalog a star based on the contents of its light. Hang on, I'll clear this up in a second. Fraunhofer's main goal was always optics, mostly for telescopes and other precision instruments like microscopes. His work led him to working on the optical spectrometer, using his own make of glass that he developed and refined over the years. What the heck does this have to do with what we're talking about now? First, Toland. Toland's journal has an interesting passage. The void is not the darkness. The darkness is what it is. Void energy is like all things of this universe. It is light, seen through a prism, a fundamental force, the vacuum between the stars, the absence of everything else. Just try explaining that to someone who has never walked the void. Toland's journal. Fraunhofer worked in optics. A type of glass could be turned into a prism, so it's interesting that Toland would use a word like this so specifically as he did, and then to go on talking about the absence and the vacuum. The absence of light is important to the discovery of how Fraunhofer lines work. Oh yeah, the system of measuring adopted later in 1859, given name for Fraunhofer's initial work on the subject, is called a Fraunhofer line. Here's what a few of them look like. Notice something? Or maybe I should say, notice something missing? The black lines that you see in the spectrums would go on to be concluded as ways to tell material in a star from afar. It's how we today in 2016 are able to look out at a star and say, that star is mostly made of hydrogen. We don't have some magic means of probing from far distances. It's all done with light, or in the cases of Fraunhofer lines, absence of. Therefore, if light connects across space and time, what is the void? What role does the vacuum, the absence, play? What stops the darkness from entering into the places between the stars? The answer is simple. The void is just another type of light. Old Ton. And he wouldn't be far off. Roy G. Biv, the color spectrum as we know it, or I guess I should say the visual color spectrum. On one side you have red, on the other violet. This system is twofold, giving an idea of how light is viewed in wavelengths, and also by its temperature. Red isn't quite as hot as violet, for instance. Further along to the red side, however, you have light called infrared. It's light that we can't see, but if you cast it against the night sky, you get something like this. This is the image that we would see, however, if we used a normal lensed telescope. The difference is there to tell us and show us different things within the universe. Materials, stars, clouds, and other formations that just hover there. The list goes on. Then there's ultraviolet on the further side of violet on the spectrum, which also leads to X-rays and gamma rays. X-rays were how we were able to spot the first black hole, for instance. It could very well be the reason for the void being cast as a purple hue for us, mainly from ultraviolet light given manifest. Toland and Old Ton are observing things that scientists of the 19th and 20th centuries have theorized and understood for a good little while now, carrying into the 21st century as we go along in our lives today, cataloging further stars that reveal their light to us. We have only to look up at the starry sky to know what we need to know. Whew, well, now that about 75% of you have stopped listening to this report, let's get back on track. We have one more class to look at, perhaps the one most relatable to a black hole in the workings of space. Warlocks. Oh boy, let's get one thing out of the way first. Today, when we use the words dark in front of something, it generally means we just don't understand it. We haven't been able to fully place a concept or full understanding on dark matter or dark energy. This doesn't mean that it holds some innate evil presence or polar opposite to matter that we know of in the galaxy. It just isn't understood. That being said, the idea of dark matter in brief, because it is a long conversation, is that it has some kind of pulling effect on the universe, filling in and having some kind of effect on every star, galaxy, and motion of the worlds as we see them today. It is unseen to us from use of equipment that we have today, but there have been recent discoveries that possibly lead to us being able to track particles. Kind of. Again, this is all speculation at the moment, not full theory. Then why bring it back up? Warlocks, of course. Of course we have to be difficult and want to slam our heads into a void wall to understand it. The traveler came out of the void that surrounds all things. Thus we know that the void is full of power. Thus we enter the void without fear. Small minds will call your abilities blasphemous. They will compare you to the abominable wizards of the Hive. But you will not be held back. gifted with the Traveler's Light, armed with the secret physics of a lost age, you will tear reality asunder. You will fear nothing, and nothing will fear you. The Traveler came out of the void, tear reality asunder. This almost makes me think that the Traveler has some means of time travel, but it also gives us further ideas on the void as a whole. It came out of the void, the place between stars, the place that darkness dare not go, the place we can navigate without fear of loss to ourselves, our light, our existence, where we can embrace the nothing, understand that there is no center, up or down, that all is permitted in this dark expanse. Perhaps I'm getting a little carried away, but that's just a taste of how it feels. You call a Nova Bomb destruction? We know what it is. We've dissected its power for years now, understanding just what kind of power it is. Just before a Nova Bomb hits, there is a rush of air and warmth, the destruction of light and life in its path. Ikora. Gravity, matter, the ability to hold these two within a ball in your hand and unleash those powers onto the wild, onto life, gifting it with a different kind of understanding of light and a force of nature that only a few can understand entirely. That is a Nova Bomb. That is the Traveler's Light, gifted unto those whom are willing to learn about its powers of gravitational pressure and the warping of space-time in its wake. The Vex understand the ideas of time travel well. We need only look toward the void further to understand the small singularity entirely. Existential warlocking aside, Voidwalkers are able to use vortex grenades, scatter grenades, and Axion bolts. Remember that bit I told you about dark matter, not being able to understand it? Axions are quite possibly a key to this. Warlocks literally wield dark matter. In our looking out into space, we've been able to finally, as of this year, 2016, calculate how Axions move and act. The theory has been around since 1977 that they exist, but the theory and how we trace them are far too muddied right now to begin to explain, and I've already been given my one indulgence report. Warlock's energy drain is fairly interesting. Harken back to the Titan for a moment, how they turn their enemies into literal shields on death. Warlocks literally siphon the energy from an enemy just from touching them. We convert that matter from an enemy into our own, either in forms of energy to power our abilities or even repairing ourselves. The void can heal, take, and bestow onto all manners of life. So much more to go through, but what's next in the pile? Wait, the Hive? Who put this here? And the next book, Facts About Magic and the Fantastic? This has nothing to do with the Void. The Vex, the Cabal, Scions entering into cyberspace like we thwarted on Mars with Rasputin? None of this matters. Our enemies deal in the fantastic, the magical, the places that have no actual grounding in science nor to relate to the Void. Are they able to harness the powers they're in? Yes, with shields and weapons, and even then, only to points to try to mimic the powers that we haven't trained. All the forces that we fight have been, in some way, influenced or given some level of technology by the Traveler. It's only fair to deduce they have some understanding of the light. Let's remember, however, they don't follow the same principles we do, and unless acted upon by the darkness, neither can we. We can't time travel without the Vex assistance, or go through the different planes of being of the Hive realms without ascending or being allowed inside. These are not forces that we yet understand. The Hive, the Vex, even the Cabal to a degree, they all follow the principles of darkness, dark science, magic, contorting the fantastic to their will, using things like worm gods to understand how powers work, eating them to boot. Gross. We understand the light. The darkness understands the darkness. We both have mild understandings therein of each other's power and try to cultivate something to our liking. It's an arms race in a war. It's just the nature of these things. The Fallen are the only ones that we can somewhat relate to, but they haven't demonstrated powers of the light like we have, becoming splintered and destitute. They fight to get the Traveler back, but their technology isn't really related to the light. It's at a midway point of what we have, and that's the difference between us and the Fallen, I have a feeling. Either the Traveler's time spent with the Elixni was so short that they could only develop spaceflight, or they just never had the idea to research ways to harness light for themselves personally, like Jacob Hardy and his team of researchers did. This is further explained and proven by what Varric says. I do not understand the Void. I appreciate its effects, yes. Humans and what we've become have always been inquisitive. We want to know and understand how things work. We're not content with looking at a thing and going, hey, it's doing something in almost any avenue of our lives. If we did, we would stagnate and our society would fail. Sometimes it's left to minds like that of Fraunhofer, Newton, Einstein, Toland, Ulantan, Osiris, all of these people whom have looked at forces of nature today and connected them to science, further understanding these forces. We have them to thank for being able to fight the darkness and for understanding the cosmos a bit more. Thank you for allowing me to indulge myself, gang. I can't tell you how often I nearly came to tears thinking of the things that great men and women in our past have done to bring us to this point in our lives, with understanding how things work and how we can further ourselves. Never stop imagining, Guardians. The moment you lose your imagination is the moment you stagnate. Thank you, and take care, everyone.